I never imagined my life would be like this. My marriage, once full of love and laughter, ended in divorce. The papers were signed. It was over. I felt empty and lost. I moved out of our house and decided to start fresh in a small town by the sea. The house I found was old and quiet, just the kind of place I thought I needed to heal. It wasn't big and it was a little rundown, but it was mine. I hoped that this new place would help me forget the past, or at least make it easier to move on. The first night in the house was hard. I sat on the floor in the living room, looking at the boxes around me. There was so much to do, but I didn't have the energy. I was tired and I felt alone. My heart still ached from the divorce. I had given so much of myself to my marriage, and now it was all gone. I wanted to rest, but I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what went wrong, what I could have done differently. But thinking about the past didn't help. It only made the pain worse. Finally, I decided to go to bed. The bedroom was small and the bed was uncomfortable, but I didn't care. I just needed to sleep. As I lay there, I stared at the ceiling. The room was dark except for the light from the moon shining through the window. The house was silent, and I felt like it was holding its breath. I turned my head toward the wall and saw a large mirror. It was an old mirror, one that looked like it had been there for years. I hadn't noticed it when I first moved in. It was on the opposite side of the room, and I had not paid attention to it. But tonight it felt different. I don't know why, but something made me get out of bed and walk toward it. As I stood in front of the mirror, I looked at my reflection. I looked tired, my face pale, my hair a mess. I looked like someone who had been through a storm, someone who had lost everything. And then something strange happened. The reflection in the mirror began to change. At first, it was small, just a little shift, like a trick of the light. But then I saw it clearly. My reflection wasn't the woman I saw standing in front of the mirror. It was a younger version of me. I was in my 20s again. I saw the woman I used to be before the marriage, before the divorce. I saw her standing there, smiling back at me. I blinked, and when I opened my eyes, the reflection was back to normal. It was me again, tired and sad. I didn't understand what had just happened. I stepped back and looked at the mirror again. This time, I didn't see the younger version of me. I just saw the woman I am now. But the feeling of confusion and fear stayed with me. What was happening? Why did I see myself as a younger woman? Was I dreaming? Was I just so tired that I imagined it? I shook my head and decided to go back to bed. I didn't want to think about it anymore. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, but the image of my younger self stayed in my mind. I couldn't stop thinking about it. It felt like something important, something I needed to understand. The next day, I tried to put it out of my mind. I told myself it was just a strange dream, something that didn't matter. But as the day went on, I couldn't forget the reflection in the mirror. I kept looking at it, hoping to see the same thing again. But nothing happened. The mirror showed only the woman I was now. I tried to keep busy, unpacking the boxes and cleaning the house. But no matter what I did, the memory of the mirror kept coming back. That night, I couldn't resist. I stood in front of the mirror again, waiting for something to happen. I stared at my reflection, trying to force the younger version of me to appear. At first, nothing happened. Then, just as I was about to give up, I saw it again. There I was, younger and full of hope. I was smiling, and I felt so alive. I was happy, free from the weight of the world. It was like a window into the past, a past I had almost forgotten. But this time, it was different. The reflection didn't just show me as a young woman, it was showing me moments from my life. I saw myself walking down the street with friends, laughing and talking. I saw myself at a family gathering, sitting at the table, feeling safe and loved. I saw myself at the beach, the sun shining, the wind in my hair. All these moments were from before my marriage, before the divorce. They felt so real, so vivid. I could almost feel the happiness of those times. But then the reflection changed again. I saw myself older and sadder. I saw the woman I had become. I saw the pain in my eyes, the weight of the divorce. The reflection seemed to show me everything I had lost. I felt like I was being pulled into the past, like I couldn't escape it. It was so real, so overwhelming. I felt like I was standing between two worlds, the past, which was full of hope, and the present, which was full of regret. I turned away from the mirror, my heart pounding. I couldn't take it anymore. What was happening? Why was this mirror showing me things from my past? Why was it showing me my younger self? I didn't understand. I didn't know if I wanted to understand. It felt like something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. I walked away from the mirror, but the feeling of fear stayed with me. I couldn't forget what I had seen. It was like the mirror was trying to tell me something, but I didn't know what. All I knew was that I couldn't go back to the past. I couldn't be the person I was before. The divorce had changed me. The pain was real. I couldn't pretend that everything was okay. But the mirror, with its strange reflections, wouldn't let me forget. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about the mirror. What had I seen? Was it a dream? Or was it real? I tried to ignore it, but it was impossible. Every time I looked in the mirror, I felt something strange. It wasn't just my reflection, it was something more. I felt a pull, like the mirror was calling me. I didn't understand it, but I couldn't stop looking at it. That day, I decided to be brave and stand in front of the mirror again. I told myself that nothing would happen. I thought maybe it was just my tired mind playing tricks on me. But as I stood there, staring at the glass, I felt the same strange feeling from the night before. I watched myself, hoping for nothing, but still expecting something. And then, just like before, my reflection began to change. I saw myself as a younger woman. She was smiling, full of energy. I couldn't believe it. It was like looking at a different person. I blinked and looked again, but the reflection was still the same. The woman in the mirror was young, probably in her 20s, full of life and happiness. I could see it in her eyes. She looked at me, and for a moment, I felt like I was seeing someone I had forgotten. It felt so real, as if I had gone back in time. I reached out to touch the mirror, but it was just glass, cold and hard. I stepped back and looked at the reflection again. This time it felt different. I could see her more clearly, and I noticed something I hadn't before. The younger woman in the mirror wasn't just smiling. She looked free. She looked like she had no worries. I could almost feel the joy in her. I remembered a time when I felt like that, before the marriage, before the divorce. I remembered a time when I was carefree, when I didn't have the weight of the world on my shoulders. It felt like I was seeing a part of myself that I had lost. But just as quickly as it appeared, the reflection started to change again. I blinked, and the young woman was gone. The woman in the mirror now looked like me, but there was something different. She seemed sad, tired, and lost. She looked like someone who had been through a lot, someone who had lost something important. I didn't like seeing myself like this, but it was the truth. This was who I had become. The reflection in the mirror didn't lie. I turned away, feeling a deep sadness. I wasn't sure what I was seeing, but it was hard to ignore. The mirror seemed to show me parts of myself that I had forgotten, parts one didn't want to face. I felt like I was caught between two worlds. One world was the past, where I was happy and free, and the other was the present, where I felt empty and broken. I didn't know which world I belonged to anymore. I spent the rest of the day trying to focus on other things. I unpacked some boxes and cleaned the house, but my mind kept drifting back to the mirror. I knew I had to face it again, but I didn't want to. The thought of seeing my younger self again filled me with both hope and fear. What if I could never get back to that place? What if I could never be that happy again? That night, I couldn't resist. I stood in front of the mirror once more, trying to prepare myself for whatever might happen. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and looked into the glass. For a moment, nothing happened. I was about to turn away when I saw it. The reflection began to change again. There I was, younger and full of life. I was smiling, my eyes shining with excitement. I looked so different from the woman I had become. I almost didn't recognize her. The reflection seemed to hold me there, like it was trying to tell me something. I watched as the younger version of myself moved through memories I hadn't thought about in years. I saw myself at the beach, laughing with friends, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face. I saw myself walking through the city, my heart light and free. I remembered how happy I had been back then. But as I looked at the reflection, I felt the pain of the present pull me back. I wasn't that young woman anymore. I couldn't go back. I was different now. And then something even stranger happened. As I looked at the younger version of myself, I started to see other things. I saw moments from my past, moments I hadn't thought about in a long time. I saw myself with my ex-husband before we got married. We were laughing, holding hands, and looking at each other with love. But as the reflection changed, the moments turned darker. I saw our wedding day, and then our arguments, the fights that slowly grew bigger. I saw how we drifted apart, how we stopped talking and started hiding from each other. It was like the mirror was showing me the story of our marriage, a story I had tried to forget. The reflection in the mirror wasn't just showing me who I was before the divorce. It was showing me everything, the good and the bad. It was showing me the things I had never wanted to face. I didn't know what to do with all of this. It was too much. The reflection wasn't just a memory of the past. It was a window into everything I had lost. I felt both sadness and anger. Why couldn't I be that happy woman again? Why couldn't I go back to those carefree days? I turned away from the mirror, feeling a deep sense of loss. It was hard to face the truth. I wanted to forget everything about my past, but the mirror kept bringing it all back. It felt like I couldn't escape. The past was always there, staring back at me from the glass. I didn't know what to do anymore. Should I keep looking into the mirror? Should I try to understand what it was showing me? Or should I just leave it behind and try to move on? I didn't have the answers, but I knew one thing. The mirror had changed something inside me. It had opened up a part of my heart that I had kept closed for so long. But it also made me realize something important. I couldn't keep living in the past. I needed to find a way to move forward, even if it meant letting go of the person I used to be. As I walked away from the mirror, I felt a heavy weight on my chest. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but I knew I had to keep going. I couldn't stay stuck in the past forever. The mirror had shown me what I had lost, but it also showed me what I needed to find again. It was time to face the truth and take the next step in my journey. The days after the mirror showed me my past were harder than I expected. I couldn't stop thinking about what I had seen. Every time I looked at the mirror, I felt that strange pull again, but I didn't want to face it. It was too painful. The younger version of me looked so full of life, so happy, and I couldn't help but feel sad. The woman in the mirror had so much hope, but now I didn't know who I was anymore. I had changed. I tried to move forward, to focus on my new life in this small house by the sea. But it wasn't easy. The house felt empty. I spent my days cleaning and organizing, hoping that the busy work would help me forget the pain. But no matter how much I cleaned or how many boxes I unpacked, the emptiness inside me didn't go away. I felt lost. I missed the woman I used to be, the woman in the mirror who was free from worry and sadness. I went outside one morning to walk along the beach, hoping that the sea air would clear my mind. The beach was quiet. The sand was soft beneath my feet, and the sound of the waves helped calm my racing thoughts. I sat on a rock, watching the water move back and forth. The sea was peaceful, and for a moment I felt a little better. But then I thought about my ex-husband. I hadn't thought about him much since I moved here, but now I couldn't stop thinking about him. I remembered how we used to go to the beach together. We would walk along the shore, holding hands, talking about everything and nothing. I remembered how happy I felt in those moments. But the memories of our marriage weren't all good. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much we had changed over the years. The love we once had seemed to disappear. Our conversations stopped being about dreams and started being about problems. I started feeling like I wasn't really seen by him anymore. He was distant. I was distant. And before I knew it, we had drifted apart. I stood up and walked back to the house, my feet dragging in the sand. It was hard to accept that my marriage was over. I didn't know what went wrong, but I knew that we couldn't go back. The pain of that reality hit me again. I felt a tightness in my chest, and it was hard to breathe. I wanted to forget about him, forget about everything that hurt. But the more I tried to forget, the more it all came back to me. When I got back to the house, I found myself standing in front of the mirror again. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't stop myself. The mirror had shown me my past, but it also showed me the sadness of my present. It showed me the woman I had become, the woman who was lost and unsure. I felt a deep ache in my heart. I didn't like the person I saw now. I didn't like feeling so sad, so broken. I wanted to be that happy woman again. I wanted to feel free. But when I looked in the mirror, I didn't just see myself. This time, I saw my ex husband. Not the man he was now, but the man he used to be. He was standing next to me in the mirror, his face soft and young. He looked at me with the same love and care that I remembered from our early days together. I saw us together in the mirror, the way we used to be, walking down the street, laughing together. But it didn't last. The image started to fade, and soon I was looking at a different version of him. The happy moments were gone, replaced by the arguments, the misunderstandings, and the distance between us. The reflection was showing me everything I hadn't wanted to see. I stepped back from the mirror, my heart racing. I felt like I was drowning in the memories. I didn't want to see this. I didn't want to be reminded of everything that had gone wrong. But it was like the mirror couldn't let me forget. It was showing me the truth, even though I wasn't ready to face it. I felt overwhelmed. I wanted to scream, to run away from all of it. I didn't know how to fix what had happened. I didn't know how to heal. I only knew that the woman I was now wasn't the woman I wanted to be. The sadness, the loneliness, it was all too much. But I couldn't stay stuck in this place forever. I had to find a way to move forward. I knew that, deep down, I couldn't keep living in the past. I couldn't keep letting the memories of my ex husband control me. I had to let go of the things I couldn't change. The next few days were hard. I spent most of my time trying to avoid the mirror. I didn't want to see those painful reflections anymore. I tried to focus on the house, on making it my own. I went into the kitchen and started cooking. It wasn't much, just a simple meal, but it helped to have something to do. I cooked, I cleaned, I took care of myself in small ways. But no matter what I did, I couldn't escape the feelings of sadness and loss. One afternoon, I went for another walk along the beach. This time, I didn't think about the past. I just walked, letting the waves crash against my feet. I watched the seagulls fly overhead, and for the first time in a while, I felt a small sense of peace. It wasn't much, but it was something. I realized that the past couldn't define me forever. I couldn't let it control my life. If I wanted to heal, I had to start with myself. When I got back to the house, I knew what I had to do. I walked up to the mirror and looked at myself, really looked at myself for the first time in weeks. I didn't see the woman from my past, and I didn't see the sad woman I had become. I saw myself. I was tired, yes, but I was also strong. I had been through a lot, but I was still here. I had survived. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let the past control me anymore. I wasn't going to keep living in memories that made me feel broken. It was time to move forward, even if it was scary. I was ready to take the first step. As I turned away from the mirror, I felt a small sense of hope. I wasn't the same woman I was before, but maybe that was okay. Maybe this new version of me was just as strong, just as capable of finding happiness. The journey wouldn't be easy, but it would be mine, and I was ready to take it. I woke up feeling different that morning. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel the heavy sadness weighing on me. The house was quiet, peaceful, and I felt a small spark of hope inside me. Maybe I was ready to move on. Maybe I could leave the past behind. I went to the kitchen and made myself a cup of coffee. The warm drink felt comforting in my hands. As I sipped it slowly, I thought about the mirror. I had been avoiding it for days. It felt like the mirror was holding me in the past, showing me memories I wasn't ready to face. But now, I felt like I had the strength to look again. Maybe the mirror wasn't my enemy. Maybe it was just a reflection of my journey. After I finished my coffee, I walked to the living room where the mirror was. I stood in front of it, my heart racing a little. I wasn't sure what would happen when I looked into it this time. Would it show me the woman I used to be? Would it show me my ex husband again? I didn't know, but I was ready to find out. I looked into the mirror, but this time, nothing strange happened. It was just my reflection standing in front of me. I saw the woman I had become. I saw the tired eyes, the lines on my face, the woman who had been through so much. But I didn't feel sad this time. I felt strong. I had made it through the hardest days of my life, and I was still here. The mirror didn't show me my past. It showed me the present. It showed me who I was now, and I was proud of that. As I stared at myself in the mirror, I thought about all the things I had learned since the divorce. I had learned that it was okay to be alone. I had learned that I didn't need anyone else to define me. I had learned that I could be strong even when things were hard. And most importantly, I had learned that I could move forward. I smiled at my reflection, a small but genuine smile. I wasn't the woman I had been before. I wasn't the woman I had seen in the mirror weeks ago, but that was okay. I was someone new now. I had found a new sense of purpose, a new sense of hope. The past wasn't gone, but it didn't control me anymore. The next few days, I continued to take small steps forward. I spent my time cleaning the house, organizing my things, and settling into my new life. I even started to get out of the house more. I went for walks along the beach, watched the sunsets, and enjoyed the quiet beauty of the sea. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was living for myself, not for anyone else. One evening, as I was walking along the beach, I saw something that made me stop. It was a small shop by the water, a shop I had never noticed before. The windows were filled with old books, antiques, and handmade things. It looked like a place that held memories, a place that told stories. Something about it drew me in, and I decided to go inside. The shop was small and quiet. The air smelled like old wood and books. There were shelves filled with all kinds of things, from old paintings to dusty books. I walked slowly, looking at everything. It felt like stepping into another world, a world of stories and memories. As I walked to the back of the shop, I saw an old mirror. It wasn't big, but it had an interesting frame with small flowers carved into it. I reached out and touched it, feeling the cool surface of the glass. As soon as my fingers touched the mirror, I felt a strange feeling, like something was pulling me toward it. It wasn't the same feeling I had with my mirror at home. This feeling was different. It wasn't painful or sad. It was calm, almost peaceful. I looked into the mirror and I saw something surprising. Instead of seeing just myself, I saw a reflection of the shop around me. But there was something else too. I saw a woman standing beside me. She was different from the woman I had seen before. She looked confident, calm, and peaceful. She didn't look lost or sad like the woman I had seen in my home mirror. She looked at me with a gentle smile. I blinked and looked again, but the woman was gone. I only saw my reflection. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Was I seeing the woman I could become? Was this a sign? I didn't know, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The mirror at the shop was different from the one at home. It didn't show me the past or the pain. It showed me a possibility, a vision of who I could be. I walked out of the shop, my mind racing. I felt like I was on the edge of something important, something that could change my life. The strange feeling I had in the shop stayed with me as I walked back home. It was like I was walking toward a new future, a future where I could be strong, confident, and happy again. That night, I sat by the window, looking out at the dark sea. The moonlight reflected on the water, and the sound of the waves was calming. I thought about everything I had been through and everything I had learned. I knew that the journey wasn't over. I knew that I still had a long way to go, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. The past wasn't gone, but it didn't have to define me. I could create a new life for myself. The next day, I went back to the shop to see the mirror again. This time, I didn't just look at it, I bought it. I didn't know why, but I felt like I needed it. It felt like a symbol of something important, something that was waiting for me. Maybe it was a sign that I was ready to move forward, to let go of the past and embrace the future. I brought the mirror home and placed it in the living room. I looked into it again, but this time I didn't see the past or the sadness. I saw myself standing tall, looking forward. I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. The mirror didn't show me the woman I used to be. It showed me the woman I was becoming. I didn't know what the future held, but I was ready to find out. The past had shaped me, but it didn't define me. The woman in the mirror was strong, and I was ready to be her. The days after I brought the mirror home felt different. Something had shifted in me. I couldn't explain it, but I felt like I was waking up from a long, dark sleep. The sadness that had been inside me for so long was still there, but it wasn't as heavy. It felt like I was beginning to breathe again, like I had been holding my breath for months, and now I could finally exhale. Every morning, I would wake up and look at myself in the mirror. I didn't see the woman who was sad or lost anymore. I saw someone stronger, someone who had been through a lot but was still standing. It felt strange, but good. I wasn't just looking at my reflection. I was looking at a future I could build for myself, a future where I didn't have to live in the shadow of my past. I kept the mirror in the living room, and every time I walked by it, I would stop for a moment and look at myself. I would smile, even if it was small. It was a sign that I was starting to move forward. I wasn't perfect, and I still had days when the sadness tried to come back, but I was learning to push through it. I was learning to trust myself again. One afternoon, I decided to do something I hadn't done in a long time. I went into town. I hadn't been out much since moving to the house by the sea. It was quiet, and I was still getting used to being alone. But today, I wanted to explore. I wanted to see the world outside my small house. I walked through the streets, enjoying the fresh air. The town was small, but it had charm. There were little shops, cafes, and art galleries. I found myself smiling as I walked, noticing the things I hadn't seen before. The trees, the flowers, the way the light changed as the sun began to set. It all felt so beautiful. I hadn't realized how much I had missed just being outside, just being in the world. As I walked, I passed a cafe with outdoor seating. There were people sitting at the tables, talking and laughing, enjoying the day. It was a nice feeling, watching others enjoy their lives. I thought about how I used to love going to cafes with my ex-husband. We would sit, talk, and drink coffee for hours. But now I was here alone, and that was okay. I decided to go inside the cafe and have a cup of coffee. It wasn't a big deal, but it felt like a small victory. I sat at a table by the window and watched the world go by. As I sipped my drink, I felt a sense of peace. I didn't feel lonely. I didn't feel sad. I felt like I was exactly where I needed to be. I didn't need anyone else to make me happy. I could be happy on my own. The next few days were just as peaceful. I spent my time enjoying the small things. I went to the beach every morning, walked through the town, and spent time in my house. I kept up with my work, cleaning, and organizing, and I started to feel like I was finally creating a life for myself. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. One evening, as I sat by the window watching the sunset, I thought about the mirror again. It had become a part of my daily life. I didn't just look at it, I thought about it. It wasn't just a mirror. It was a reminder of everything I had been through and everything I had learned. I had been afraid of the woman I saw in the mirror at first, but now I saw her as someone strong, someone capable of facing whatever came next. It wasn't just the mirror that had changed me, it was the process of letting go. It was the process of accepting that my marriage was over, that my past wasn't something I could change, and that I had the power to create a future for myself. I had learned that it was okay to be alone. I had learned that I didn't need to carry the weight of the past with me anymore. One day, I woke up with a new feeling. I didn't know what to call it, but it felt like a new beginning. I had been living in the past for so long, holding on to the memories of what I had lost. But now, I felt ready to move forward completely. I didn't want to be stuck in the past anymore. I wanted to create something new. I decided to take another step forward. I signed up for a painting class. It had been a long time since I had done anything creative, but I had always loved painting. It was something I had done in the past, but I had stopped when life got busy. Now, I wanted to start again. I didn't know what the future held, but I was excited to explore something new. I was excited to find new ways to express myself. The first day of class, I was nervous. I didn't know anyone, and I wasn't sure what to expect. But as soon as I picked up the paintbrush, I felt a sense of peace. It felt right. The colors, the textures, the movement of the brush on the canvas. It all came together in a way that felt natural. I wasn't thinking about my past or my ex husband or anything else. I was just focused on the painting in front of me. It felt good to be doing something just for me. The class wasn't easy, but it was rewarding. As I painted, I started to see the world differently. I noticed the colors in the sky, the shapes in the clouds, the way the light danced on the water. Painting helped me see the beauty in the world again. It helped me see the beauty in myself. I began to realize that my journey wasn't just about healing from my past. It was about discovering who I was now and what I wanted for my future. It was about creating a life that felt true to me. I didn't know what would come next, but I was ready to find out. I was ready to live again. The next day, I sat in front of my mirror once more. This time, I didn't feel the same sadness I had felt before. I didn't feel lost or confused. I felt strong. I felt like I had finally found myself again. The woman in the mirror wasn't just someone from the past. She was someone I could be proud of. I smiled at her, and this time, it felt real. I was ready to take the next step. I was ready to live my life fully, without looking back. The weeks passed quickly, and life began to feel different. I had found a new rhythm, a new way of living. Every day was a chance to grow, to learn, and to create something for myself. I spent my time painting, taking walks by the beach, and enjoying the peace I had found in my home. It wasn't always easy, and I still had hard days, but I felt stronger with every passing moment. One morning, I woke up early. The sky outside my window was still dark, but I could see the first light of the sun starting to rise. I sat up in bed, feeling a calmness inside me that I hadn't known for a long time. It felt like everything was in its place. I wasn't looking back anymore, and I wasn't afraid of what might come next. I was simply living in the present, and that was enough. I stood up and walked to the living room where my new mirror stood. It had become a symbol for me, something that helped me see the truth about myself. When I first bought it, I didn't know how much it would change my life. But now, every time I looked into it, I saw a woman who was no longer lost, no longer broken. I saw a woman who had found her way. I stood in front of the mirror that morning, just looking at myself. I saw the lines on my face, the way my hair had grown longer, the small changes that had happened over time. But more than that, I saw strength. I saw confidence. I saw someone who had been through a lot, but who had also learned how to stand tall again. I smiled at the reflection. It was the first time in a long time that I truly felt proud of who I was. I thought about how far I had come. When my marriage ended, I felt lost. I didn't know who I was or what I was supposed to do with my life. But now I had found myself again. It wasn't about forgetting the past, but about accepting it and moving forward. It wasn't about being perfect, but about being strong enough to face each day with hope. I left the house and went for a walk by the beach, the cool morning air refreshing against my skin. The waves crashed against the shore, and the sound was peaceful. It felt like the world was quiet, waiting for something. I felt at peace with everything around me, and for the first time in a long time, I felt connected to the world again. I wasn't just existing, I was living. As I walked along the beach, I noticed something that made me stop. There was a small group of people gathered near the water, watching something. I walked closer, curious to see what it was. When I got there, I saw that they were watching the sunrise. The sky had turned bright with color, and the sun was rising over the ocean. It was a beautiful sight, and I couldn't take my eyes off of it. I stood there with them, watching as the sun slowly rose higher and higher in the sky. It was a simple moment, but it felt important. The sun was rising, bringing light to a new day. It was a reminder that each day was a fresh start, a chance to begin again. I felt a deep sense of peace in that moment. It was as if the world was telling me that everything would be okay. Later that day, I went back to my painting class. It was something I had come to enjoy, a way to express myself and my emotions. I had started painting landscapes, inspired by the beauty of the sea and the sky. Every brushstroke felt like a release, a way to let go of the past and create something new. I was no longer painting for anyone else. I was painting for myself. As I painted, I thought about my journey. I thought about how I had once been so afraid of moving forward, so afraid of what the future would bring. But now I was embracing it. I was ready to take on whatever came my way. I wasn't going to let fear control me anymore. I was in control of my own life. The more I painted, the more I realized that I was creating not just art, but a new life. I was building something that was truly mine, a life filled with peace, creativity, and strength. I wasn't looking for anyone else to make me happy. I had found happiness within myself. As the days passed, I continued to grow. I started to meet new people, people who shared my love for art and creativity. I made new friends, and it felt good to connect with others again. I didn't need to rely on anyone else to feel complete. I had learned that I was enough on my own. I could stand on my own 2 feet, and I could make my own choices. But even with all the changes, I never forgot the lesson the mirror had taught me. It had shown me who I was and who I could become. It had been a reminder that I had the strength to face the past and move forward into the future. I didn't need to be afraid of what came next. I was ready for whatever life had in store for me. One afternoon, I went to the beach again. The weather was warm and the sun was shining brightly. I walked along the shore, feeling the sand between my toes. It was a perfect day, and as I looked out at the ocean, I felt a sense of gratitude. I was grateful for the life I had now, for the lessons I had learned, and for the strength I had found within myself. As I walked, I thought about my future. I didn't know exactly what it would look like, but I knew that I was ready for it. I was no longer afraid of the unknown. I had come so far, and I knew that I could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The future was mine to create. I reached the end of the beach and turned to walk back. I could feel the warm sun on my face, and I smiled to myself. I was at peace. The past was behind me, and the future was waiting for me. I was ready to take the next step. The mirror had shown me my past, my present, and my future. It had helped me find myself again. And now, as I walked along the beach, I knew that I was ready to move forward. I was no longer the woman I had been before. I was someone new, someone stronger, and someone who was ready to embrace whatever came next. The journey wasn't over, but I was ready for it. I smiled again, feeling the warmth of the sun on my skin. I had found peace. I had found myself, and I was ready to live the rest of my life with hope, strength, and joy.